Today on Locked On Rockies, continuing to react with your comments to the Brendan Rodgers and Cal Quantrill news, plus how to evaluate Rockies players.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 26th day of November in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show, just like a bunch of people will be today, thanks to their comments on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Support the show there. Make sure that you're checking it out, and every time that you like the video, every time that you leave a comment, and when you subscribe to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, you are helping the show grow each and every time. I'm promising you, folks, it's one of the easiest and best ways to help the show grow. Really do appreciate all the support that we've been getting here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. We got a show today of fan reactions as we continue to go through this, and I'm trying to just make sense of player evaluation and just how that works for the Rockies anyway. And in general, I mean, the Rockies aren't the first team for this situation to happen to, but there was a really good piece from a Substack. I believe it's a Substack, but the Rockies versus Connor, a baseball journal here. If you want to go check out some more, what we'll be reading from today. A nice time, from time to time, nice little piece there from Connor. So we will check that out as well. And so that's, and I want to start by letting you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I just want to explore this idea and this concept of player evaluation. And let me preface this at the front of, again, as I say multiple times, and as I've said before, like, I'm not a baseball GM. I'm not a baseball diehard. I'm not a front office member. These people are put in the positions that they are because that's what their role is, and XYZ. I don't need to spend time explaining that side of it. But I am really struggling with this concept of there was no trade value for either one of these players. And it's the timeline, it's this and that, and I've seen the injury concerns for Brendan Rodgers. Obviously Cal Quantrill was looking to bounce back for half a season, moved on. But it's just, let's just start at least with a little bit of this piece from Connor here. I think it's something that sets the tone. The Rockies' decision at this deadline represented two things. The first being a brief positive feeling that they will not stick by veterans when there are exciting prospects in the wings, and the second that they have once again failed to learn a lesson that they should have learned a long time ago. Yes, the Rockies announced they had non-tendered Brendan Rodgers and Cal Quantrill, two very different players with very different histories with the team, but who both represent the same frustrating pattern. They continue to overvalue their own players, and it continues to lead to ruined opportunities to build a better, more foundational team because of it. And that's the thing that sticks out with me. That's the thing that goes back. And there's a piece, and there's part of this piece later on that goes back and revisits 2018 when Brendan Rodgers was considered to be untradeable and got in the way of moves that could have been huge. I mean, remember, JT Realmuto was very heavily rumored to be going to the Rockies in that season. So I guess I want to go back to what is it about these Rockies players that often have the Rockies so head over heels that they stick their feet in the mud and don't do anything? Again, as we went over it, you've lost Rodgers, Gray, Story, Quantrill, and then Estevez, right, was in free agency. Hoffman, was that free agent? No, that was a trade a while ago. But there's 5 guys right there. 5 guys, including Carlos Estevez, who went out and was impactful. Trevor Story did get a bag and a deal, and they got a compensatory draft pick for. But what about these other guys? They're that bottom of the barrel in the world of baseball. They're that bad in the world of baseball that they're not worth anything. Or is it the expectations for the Rockies continue to be, not only are they overvaluing, but their expectations of maybe what they can get in the market, what is this fair or good trade? Regardless, we have now seen in 6 straight losing seasons, there have been trade pieces, and there's only been 2 seasons ago? Not this past season, the 24 deadline, but the 23 deadline, where the Rockies did actually make a bunch of moves. What changed? Why would you be so aggressive, and not, I mean, aggressive even in quotes? Why would you make so many deals at the deadline in 23, but not 24 when the writing was on the wall from game 1? The tone for a lost season started when your team had a historically bad start. And it didn't turn around. The bus didn't ever fully turn around. I believe the Rockies played above 500 1 month out of the season this year. So with these moves, why again should I have a lot of confidence in this team's ability to rebuild itself back up? Why am I confident that this team is going to make the tough calls, the tough decisions, the heartbreakers on paper and initially to set themselves up for success? Because it doesn't matter clearly the evaluation process for the Colorado Rockies is a lot different. I'm sorry, man. You can hit me with whatever you want about injuries, this, that, about Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers, in 3 of the last 4 seasons, has played over 100 games. During that time, when he has played over 100 games, he is an above-WAR player. It's 1, with his career high being 4.3 in 2022, but he's still a guy that has a gold glove. He's still a guy that can hit you, double-digit home runs. Still a guy that can drive in RBI. Still a guy that I think there is a team out there that would be interested in a number 3 overall pick that while you can sit there and call it a bust overall, it's not like he's going out there and he's a massive problem. Yes, he had the issues in 19 and 2020 as well, but those were still when he was young, and the pandemic season. I mean, 2019 was when it was his first look at the majors. Since he became a starting third base or second baseman, he's been mostly positive. And after that injury he suffered, he was able to heal and recover in time to get on the field later that season after everyone said his season was done. He's young. I mean, there's tremendous upside, I think, for Brendan Rodgers still. And even though I think that, the rest of the league might not. The numbers truly might be out there. But I just am curious, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's just like, where is the foresight? How much? And I'm genuinely asking this question. I'm not trying to be mean when I ask this question. It is like, where is the future vision with the Rockies? When they get to the trade deadline, what are they talking about here? Because again, if you want to go youth guys, you want to go young guys, why not just do that for the whole second half of the season? Why not fully embrace that in an opportunity where you definitely could have traded Kyle Quantrill at the trade deadline. I'm sorry, Kyle Quantrill's season leading up to the trade deadline made him intriguing enough that you could have gotten something. Maybe not exactly what you yourself wanted as the Rockies, but now you got a second half of the season of bad pitching from Kyle Quantrill that torpedoed his trade value, and he walks in free agency. I just don't believe that there wasn't a good enough deal for a second baseman that maybe hasn't fully developed, and a starter that started off the first half of the season on a good note. But again, it's I'm not a pro. I'm not a GM. I'm not a scout. I'm not in the game. I'm not as hard locked into the games, I guess. But we've seen that we've gone through this experience time and time again. We have done this over and over again. It stinks. It's just, I don't know. I just, here's a good spot here, because Connor writes about how Quantrill, and it was short, but Quantrill's impact on the Rockies is minimal, even in the long term. He came, he pitched, he left. It's not uncommon for veteran players to do that on crappy teams, but the organization's stubborn refusal to part with him at the deadline, only to watch that stubbornness blow up in their faces, represents a key flaw in Rockies roster management. From Dan O'Dowd to Jeff Bridich and now Bill Schmidt, the Rockies have now spent nearly 2 decades telling fans that to make a trade, you need a trade partner, and they didn't get what they wanted for these guys. But all that seems to happen when you don't move these guys when you can is that eventually you just stop paying them and you don't have anything to show for it. Right. Like, again, why? Why is that the plan? And again, it's the stubbornness. It's the idea and the mindset, which we have heard from Dick Monfort himself. Let me remind you, I am not going to let that go. I will never let that go. This is an organization. This is a team that thinks they have it all figured out, that thinks that they are better. Remember, we don't want outside perspectives. We don't want outside perspectives because they won't work, or we've tried them already. Why not try doing something different at the deadline and shaking it up? Why not try doing something differently and actually trying to make deals? Because they sit there and say, oh, it takes a trade partner. No, it takes you also being a realistic trade partner. The Rockies, by WAR, by the numbers, by definition, have not been a good baseball team. So you're not going to get the best value in the league. But instead of having 2 tradable pieces walk for nothing in free agency, you could have done something. You could have gotten Amador more at bats. You could have given Alan Trejo another shot to see what would have happened and have him be your utility guy before releasing him earlier in the season. But no, instead, you stuck your feet down in the sand once again, and you probably said, this is it. This is the deal. If you ain't interested, take a hike. And so every other team just hung up the phone or didn't even dial because they know it ain't worth dealing with the Rockies shenanigans. You can sit there and say, oh, it takes 2 to trade. It takes 2 to trade. Yes, it does. And yeah, that includes you. But I don't know. I just want to read a little bit more from this Connor piece here. Talks about how the Rockies aren't alone and hanging on to these prospects. Gives some insight into why the Rodgers situation is frustrating when you think of the history. But I wanted to focus on this part right here. This is what ultimately separates organizations in professional sports. How well you can operate within the resources you have to win games. Some of that is based on external factors like a salary cap or a miserly owner. Some of that is based on internal factors like, should we hire better coaches? The nature of American sports is cyclical. I always mess this up, but anyway, in that no matter who you root for, eventually that team will have good players. Bad teams draft higher. They have more chances to get those guys. But good players and good teams can be separate entities, so much that they can be at odds with each other. The Rockies are not an organization that have lacked good players, but when they make decisions like holding on to Cal Quantrills or Brendan Rodgers, it's clear why they're an organization that has lacked good teams. The margins matter. Even when you have a $200 million payroll like New York or LA, the decisions you make on the players that fill out your roster can alter a lot more than a random regular season game. This is a lesson the Rockies continue to fail to learn. If they had traded Cal Quantrill, would they have gotten any value back? That is an unknown. Certainly not a guarantee, but it's more than fair to wonder why a losing team would continue to hold on to a player that only has downside risk. It is prudent to ask a team with 5 playoff appearances in 30 years why they're seemingly the only one in the league that can't grasp the concept that replacement level players are replaceable. I think that just nails it. Nail on the head. Why are the Rockies continuing to say it just they are continuing to do Rockies things, and it doesn't seem like they're learning very many lessons from them. I highly recommend the Substack here, Rockies versus Connor, a baseball journal. You can see more on this from last week. You can dive into it. It's a good piece. There's a lot more in there. There's a lot of stuff that will frustrate you a little bit. And let's talk about your reactions to this news coming up next in today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Ibotta. Ibotta, you botta, we botta. That is what we're doing this holiday season. And if you hate grocery shopping during this time of year, Ibotta is making your Thanksgiving easier with cash back and everything you need to make your perfect holiday meal. So you can get the turkey and your favorite sides for free. This month, Ibotta is giving new users 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can get everything you need for the holidays. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Download the Ibotta app now and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. We are also brought to you by Gametime. Gametime's got you covered when you need tickets to the biggest events in town. And it ain't just sports, comedy, shows, music, whatever you need to see, Gametime's got you covered. And they got a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing feature. I toggle that button on, and I see exactly what I'm going to pay up front right there. And best part, I'm going to have a picture of my seat. So I'm going to know exactly where I'm sitting. I'm going to have that panoramic view. So I'm going to know exactly what I'm looking for there. And Gametime's got you covered. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk. Thanking you for making us your first listen of the day. Shout outs to all of you out there for checking us out, for enjoying, for hanging out with us here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Pardon me. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at the some of the listener comments here, the reaction here from Rockies fans on the YouTube channel here. This is from the Nerd Herd. I think I share most of the same thoughts you had on the Rockies not finding someone to get for Rodgers. And what is especially surprising to me is the fact that he won a Gold Glove, which I think some team out there would find valuable. But what do you think Kyle Farmer can contribute to the Rockies? Also, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, what is your Thanksgiving go-to? What's your go-to Thanksgiving holiday activity? Mine is definitely watching the rivalry football game between the Nebraska Cornhuskers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Well, let's go with the Rockies questions here first. Kyle Farmer, I don't necessarily know overall what he will contribute, but veteran player that can play multiple positions and will play more than you probably want him to. I think that's what you can safely expect is Kyle Farmer will take at-bats away from young guys because it's what Bud Black likes to do is putting veterans in there for a thing. Again, it's how much will the Rockies fully embrace the youth movement this season. It's a prime second base will be a prime spot for that, because again, we saw Amador come up and while he is a highly rated prospect, he didn't do great. So we're gonna have to see what development we've seen from Amador to get to this position. And then if Amador is on the team but not playing because of Farmer getting most of the starts at second base, it's a massive problem. But it sounds like, Farmer's had upside in his career. He's had down seasons. It's another project that needs a bounce back. It's another veteran that left another team struggling, trying to come to the Rockies to bounce back and get not only a deal, but get a jolt to their system, a jolt to their careers, and try to go hitting those hitter-friendly confines. Adds a veteran leader. The Rockies are going to be, not loaded with veterans on that team. They still have some key ones there, but I don't know. I to be totally honest, I don't necessarily know exactly what it is. But when I saw that signing, it just made me think of Jake Cave all over again. I think he's going to play a lot of second base, and you're going to sit there and be like, okay, how many games is he going to play instead of Amador? How many games is he going to play instead of other young guys? And that will be a question to be seen about the how the Rockies will handle that position. John Clement says, I completely agree with you. Why would you choose nothing over something, yet the Rockies do it over and over again? It's maddening. And I think that's an important thing to realize here. I don't believe that there was zero interest in those players. I truly do not believe it. Quantrill, I can get in this stage because obviously he stunk in the second half of the season. And that basically torpedoed any trade value that he really probably had. But I refuse to believe that Brendan Rodgers would not be tradable. I refuse to believe that there wasn't a deal, an interesting enough deal. Even if it's a flyer at that point, if you're sitting there saying we are not tendering these guys contracts if we can't get a deal done, then you should have taken any deal. At that late stage, maybe everyone pulled out at that point, and everyone was all done. But I truly, truly do not believe that that there was nothing, not a zilch for Brendan Rodgers. You can hit me with peripherals, you can hit me with injury, whatever you want. Young guy still with the high ceiling, and guess what? I won't be surprised in a couple of years from now we're talking about how Brendan Rodgers is dominating for another team. Is it 100% guarantee that's going to happen? No. But it's certainly something that I believe can happen. Luxay says, if the Rockies just drop these players for nothing, we better be seeing a lot more young guys play. I don't think the Farmer deal wasn't too bad, but to be fair, I also didn't know the stats you mentioned. And again, Farmer's had a decent enough career where the one season isn't going to be the thing. I better not be seeing Kyle Farmer be playing 100 games like they did with Jake Cave over some young players. The Rockies were so bad they made a mid-player like Jake Cave look good, who we lost 100 games with and who isn't even on the team anymore. And from what I heard on Instagram, some Rockies fans told me the Rockies didn't get any offers for Rodgers and Cal, which to me kind of sucks because I think they are worth something even if it's a low prospects. The Rockies do moves like these at the wrong time. We could have gotten something for Cal and Rodgers at the deadline, but nope, we do this and get nothing. If this front office doesn't care about its own players or even its own fan base, and it's honestly quite embarrassing going to other cities or even Denver, it's itself wearing a Rockies hat. Got to ride it. You got to be loyal. If you're the diehard, you wear that Rockies hat wherever it goes. I feel you. But it's frustrating again. And it's the good news is later in the week we're going to get some insight from Patrick Lyons to hopefully maybe get some clearing up of what actually some of the deals look like from people, from someone actually connected to the organization. There's someone that follows and is in the locker room and stuff. So I will be asking Patrick about this for sure. Jim says, Paul, are you suggesting that the owner of the Rockies may not be all knowing and all seeing when it comes to baseball? I am completely shocked. No. I'm with you, Jim. And David here says, interesting to speculate if the Rockies management overvalued Quantrill and Rodgers at the deadline. Definitely could have gotten something, but it will be telling where they end up and for how much money. Please keep us posted on their signings on the pod. I will. I'm more intrigued to see what happens with Rodgers and Quantrill. I think Quantrill, unfortunately, is going through a part of his career where he's trying to get anything and everything going. Because again, that second half wasn't great. That second half really, I think, got in the way of the future for Quantrill. Certainly not over. I mean, it's a tough place to play, but I will be interested. I'm with you. What the money will look like for Rodgers. All right, quick break, and let's wrap this show up. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and they got you covered throughout the football season because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with the FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel sportsbook app is super easy to use, super secure. All you got to do, just fire it up, and it's going to give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And it is a busy week for NFL action with lots of games going on throughout the week. We got football on Thursday. We got football on Friday. We got football on Saturday and Sunday. There's all sorts of football action. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, with live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On Rockies here, wrapping up for today, reminding you again for your second listen of the day to go check out Locked On MLB with our guy Sully. So to put a bow on everything today, I just want to say my thoughts is this. If you're with where you're at, with the lower level moves that you've made this offseason, with some of the bringing in some of these guys, minor league deals, this, that, and the other thing, you just need to embrace the youth movement this year. If this year should be the year where the Rockies could have been going through the last, flirted with it, but you need to embrace this. You need to embrace that this is a situation in which the young guys are the priority. The prospects are the priority. And this coaching staff and this front office organization needs to prove that that is going to be the plan this year. And again, they have to show us development. Another thing that you can point out here, who's been the manager during Brendan Rodgers' development? I mean, that is a valid point. You believe so highly in Brendan Rodgers. You didn't make those moves in the competitive time. And now you're at a situation again with this is the coaching staff that has been involved with Brendan Rodgers most of his career. I know the hitting coach changed a couple of years ago, so maybe that's not the fairest way to say it. But manager-wise, it is. So what does that say about the coaching and the development? That players continue to walk, that the players that players don't stick with the Rockies, that players don't believe in the vision of the Rockies. What does that say about the organization itself? The Rockies have stuck with the same status quo again. The Rockies have continued to go back to things. We are following the Rockies cycle to a T. What will this team do differently to prove anything wrong or prove anything differently this upcoming season? Only time will tell, but I sure hope it starts with that the young guys are the primary focus. I sure hope that it isn't just the main goal of we're going to put a lineup together every day to make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to win, because you can say that anytime. You're never going to come up and just say, hey, we put a crappy lineup out there of young guys just to get it. Teams aren't going to say that as directly. Certainly not the Rockies. So again, this is another situation in which the Rockies organization, the Rockies development, the Rockies, the Rockies front office and coaching staff need to prove to us that they can develop these high-level players. Brendan Rodgers serves as a warning sign for all these other guys that we're excited about. So does Trevor Story. So does Nolan Arenado. Look at where the best players that have played with the Rockies over the past decade, where are they? Because only one of them is really with the Rockies. I guess you throw Herman in there too. Kyle and Herman. It's all. I mean, that's that. This team has so much more proving it to do. It's not even funny. But folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and available on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. And it's a great way to support the show. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.